Welcome to All Pro Football Data. My name is Jim Coburn, and today's episode we're going to be talking about Laiatu Latu, edge rusher out of UCLA. We're going to be looking at his production data and other statistical factors to see how he will project at the next level. Latu went from being a medically retired player in 2020 due to a neck injury to the Pat Tillman Defensive Player of the Year in 2023. An amazing story of perseverance and continuing to fight to play a sport that you love. Kudos to you, man. That's a great, great, great accomplishment for him. Now, in terms of the data work that I do, defensive market share is what I use to evaluate most defensive players based on their overall data. How you get defensive market share is pretty simple. You take a raw statistic, you divide it by the team total, and then once you've transformed that statistic, you rank it against positional peers to get you the percentile score, and that score is then weighted against the age score of a prospect to give you defensive market share. So essentially, if a guy had 5 sacks on a team that had 50, he had 10% sack market share. You take that number and you compare it to every single edge rusher performance since as far back as the 1989 NFL draft class, and then you end up seeing how well he performed based on his positional peers in that particular metric. Now, looking at Latu in terms of his production, he had a 70 percentile in terms of solo tackles, 87 in terms of sacks, and 89 in terms of tackle for loss. That's decent number to be in. In terms of his overall market share, he profiles more as a starter than a Pro Bowler. Most Pro Bowlers are in the 80 plus percentile in terms of solo tackles. He did hit the sack and TFL average for edge rushers, but he didn't quite hit the all-pro area at all for the most part in terms of his overall production. So he's more so a starter than a Pro Bowler based on his overall market share data in terms of the big three, which are sacks, solo tackles, and tackles for loss. Those are the big metrics to pay attention to in terms of the edge rusher position. And then the other metrics to look at are things like forced fumbles and pass deflections. His forced fumble market share score was in the 88 percentile, which is fantastic. And his pass deflection market share score was 59.23 out of 100, which is more so in the starter area. So it's kind of a mixed bag in terms of his efficiency scores at the edge rusher position. But again, the biggest things to pay attention to are solo tackles, sacks, and tackles for loss. Things like forced fumbles and pass deflections are not the most important things to kind of look at in terms of the edge rusher position. Now, looking at adjusted production. So adjusted production is where you take the age score of a prospect, compare it to the market share scores, strength of schedule score, strength of team score, which is called the SRS score. That gives you the MSA score, which is the market share, strength of schedule, strength of team, and age score. Then, of course, the pass score looks at market share scores, efficiency scores, age score, SRS, and SOS scores, which gives you adjusted production scores. So in terms of what this means, this is the context to his production. So how productive was he for his level of competition? How productive was he for how good his team was? How productive was he for his age? These are things that adjusted production scores answer in terms of their overall data profile. And when you look at his adjusted production score, he did okay. Not great, but okay. He had a 68 in terms of his age score, a 76 percentile MSA rating, and a 31.87 in terms of his pass score. So his overall, well, actually, no. He had a 68 in terms of his pass score, a 76 in terms of his MSA, and a 31.87 in terms of his age score. Sorry about that. So his age is probably the biggest thing that's kind of pushing him down in terms of his overall projection because he is an older edge rusher prospect. That doesn't mean that he can't be a long-term starter, but that is something that kind of affects his overall projection. Now, in terms of the best comparisons for him, here are the pro comparisons for Latu in terms of other edge rushers who scored similar in terms of his production data. He scored similar to guys like Will Smith, Lamar Woodley, Bobby McCray, Joe Tryon, who was probably one of the more recent picks on this particular area, Matthias Kiwanuka, Samson Ebukam, Mark Anderson. Those are the types of edge rushers that he tested most similar to based on his overall production profile. Not a bad group to be in, to be honest. But again, his age does kind of lower his overall projection because the dearest players to him based on his age are guys like Matthias Kiwanuka and Carl Klug. Do I think Latu could be better than those players? Absolutely. But his age does lower the impact of his overall production. If he had done this 2 years ago, this is a potential All-Pro Pro Bowl player. But because he did it at an older age, it kind of makes you wonder what his overall upside is at the next level. So he's a great prospect. He's a very good prospect. He's a guy who has starter Pro Bowl level potential. But he's not exactly somebody I think you should consider taking in the top 10 of the NFL draft. And he is also somebody who you should temper your expectations on because he does have a higher bust potential rate than starter rate based on his overall data. Now, overall outlook for Latu. He profiles as a potential Pro Bowl to long-term starter based on his data profile. The biggest weaknesses in his profile come down to his age and his production not being high enough to compensate for his age. So he wasn't 90 plus percentile in terms of solo tackles. He wasn't 90 plus percentile in terms of sack market share. He wasn't 90 plus percentile in terms of tackles for loss into that particular area. And these are things that do matter at the position. He has the overall profile to become an NFL starter, but there is higher bust potential in this profile compared to other prospects this year. So I would say Latu is somebody who has potential to be a very good NFL starter to potential Pro Bowler at the next level, but I don't think he is as good. I think long term he may not have the type of career that a lot of people expect out of him. I could be wrong. Again, I base my predictions and my estimates on the data, but I like him as a prospect. I think there are a lot of good things to say about him and look at him on the data, but I think that overall you should temper your expectations of him a little bit. I think there are other positions that might have better overall outcomes than him, if you will. So that is Laiatu Latu in a nutshell. And thank you guys so much for watching my channel. My name is Jim Coburn. You can follow my other work at Geometrics, at Jimetrics, and also check me out on patreon.com/jcoburn to get even more information. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace!